Hey everybody, Jason Leisure and Joe Schad here from the Palm Beach Post. We are coming to you live from Hard Rock Stadium after the Dolphins lose again, 30-17. They're 1-4. They were a missed field goal away from being 0-5 at this point. It's been a very rough start. Today, you look at a 30-17 game in which they were never really a threat to win that game. Almost everything went wrong. I'm looking at today, Joe, and everything that's led up to it, September, the first 4 games, and trying to figure out if there's any reason that you would imagine that things will get better here, if this is the whole season. When I look at it, I don't see things that are going to get better. You start with Ryan Tannehill, for example. This is who he is. He's 5 or 6 years in. I mean, did you look at anything right now and say this might change, or do you say this is where we're at? This is what all of 2016 will be?
This is who the Dolphins are, and for every one good thing, there have been 5 or 6 bad things. And we can start with Ryan Tannehill. I believe he now has 7 interceptions on the season, and he's had 12 in each of the last 2 seasons. So there is a regression in ball security. He was also sacked 6 times today. Now, Billy Turner had a terrible game at left tackle. He should not be starting at left tackle in the National Football League. That's not his fault. Brandon Albert was unable to go. Laramie Tunsil would have slid over to left tackle, but something happened to him. We still don't know what. I asked several players what happened to Laramie Tunsil. Did not get an answer in the locker room. Basically, it was, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Dolphins very secretive about that.
Yeah,
if it was something normal, just come out and tell us.
I don't know if he fell in the shower. I don't know what happened. I don't know what exactly happened to Laramie Tunsil. If he fell off his scooter. If you know, send us a Twitter or Facebook message.
Even if you don't know, send us your best guess. I'm sure it'll be entertaining.
We're going to try to find out. But you start with the quarterback, and Adam Gase was supposed to solve the conundrum of Ryan Tannehill, and it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened.
Well, look through their whole lineup, Joe. I mean, look at the running backs. Who's going to get a lot better out of that group? Maybe Kenyon Drake. Jay Ajayi's in his 2nd season, maybe a little bit, but I mean, with the offensive line struggling, I don't see any of those guys emerging this year. You look at their receivers, you know what you have in Jarvis Landry. Kenny Stills has been around long enough that I think you know what you have.
He's done nothing.
And then Devontae Parker, he had a 50-yard catch today, but then what else?
Devontae Parker has 2 catches in the first half of games all year.
Yeah.
Now, I know he missed the opener, but 2 catches is completely inexcusable. Did you actually ask Devontae what happened on that interception?
I don't know if you guys saw this interception that Ryan Tannehill, I think it was
a poor
early
throw.
Third quarter, right?
Yeah.
Early third quarter, Ryan Tannehill has this interception where Parker's coming across. Tannehill throws the ball behind him, but still catchable. And it looked to me, I don't know if you saw it this way, but it looked to me like Devontae Parker caught it, and then it had it ripped from him by Jason McCourty. Parker said after the game that he never had it. It was a bobble, and he was never able to get control of it, which would be a good thing to say because it kind of puts the blame on Tannehill for the underthrown, the late pass on that. But
it seems to me,
man, it looked like he could have done something to avoid that.
And it also seems to me that Ryan Tannehill just doesn't trust Devontae Parker at this point, and maybe he shouldn't.
Why would you?
Maybe he shouldn't, because he gives him targets. Not enough targets, but when he gives him targets, he typically does not come down with the ball.
You're writing one of your pieces for tomorrow, or for today rather, about their defense struggling as well. I mean, you look at that defensive line. You know all those guys. That's Wake, Mario Williams, and Ndamukong Suh. You know the names. You know where they were drafted.
No sacks.
You know the money that's been invested in those guys, and there's nothing there. And then you go back from there, and it's worse. Linebacker, secondary, it's less shaky. I mean, what was your takeaway from talking to defensive guys?
I spoke to 6 or 7 players. I said, very simply, why did this happen? How could this happen? What needs to change? And basically, every single thing that in the history of football defensive players said needs to happen to be better was brought up. Right? They need to have better run fits. They need to be more physical. They need to be more aggressive. They need to not miss assignments. They need to tackle better. It's like every single possible thing that you could ever happen to a defense has happened to the Miami Dolphins defense in the early season. And yes, they were without starting linebackers Jelani Jenkins and Koa Misi. Yes, they were without starting cornerback Xavier Howard. By the way, starting corner Byron Maxwell, at least for today, he was a starter. He told me that he banged up his wrist, but that it's something he's been dealing with all year. It's not a new injury. It's not broken. So I didn't notice if Maxwell even came back into the game. I know Bobby McCain moved to the outside with Tony Lippett. I mean, I guess the corners didn't get torched today. That's a good thing. But really, it was only because they were so atrocious in the run defense area.
Yeah, Tennessee, I mean, they ran all over. You look at DeMarco Murray, 121 yards, Marcus Mariota, 60 yards rushing, and Derrick Henry, 54. I don't know what they finished at, but late in the game, I saw Tennessee was averaging almost 7 yards a carry.
It's demoralizing.
It's unbelievable.
It's demoralizing. And what I've already started writing, it'll be on Daily Dolphin and Palm Beach Post Sports and my Twitter account, Schad Joe, later. I'm going to give you my observations of Cameron Wake following the game. Jay, most of the guys were over on the offensive side of the locker room. Mm-hmm. Cameron Wake is the guy who dresses last.
Yes.
I watched him, and I watched the pain and the misery and the suffering of Cameron Wake as he sat in his locker absorbing the fact that his defense had just been embarrassed by the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans. And the fact, and I spoke to Wake after the game about the idea that all he's experienced is losing. I mean, it's just one loss after another. The faces change. Cameron Wake doesn't, and the losing doesn't.
Well, and the things that Dolphin fans say all the time, the thing that they always say is the Dolphins have wasted his career. It's been for what? I mean, what have you gotten out of Cam Wake's 7 or 8, however long he's been around?
It really reminds me of Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas. In these conversations we've had post-game, loss after loss, one of the things I've brought up is, who's the leader?
Yeah.
Who's the leader? And I like Rashad Jones very much. He's a great player. And he might have been half joking, but when a few media folks approached him after the game, he was like, "Oh, don't you guys have all the answers? You know the questions, you know the answers." And to me, I was like, well, man, I mean, we want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
You're the best player on the defense. And so anyway, my point is, Cameron Wake this really, really matters to him.
Yeah.
And as Ryan Tannehill pointed out in his post-game press conference last year, the Dolphins still have to find out who on the roster does this matter enough to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there are enough guys.
Well, I'm not sure. In a partial defense of Adam Gase, when I was coming into the season looking at their roster, I saw a decent starting 22, but not a lot of depth. So when Adam Gase starts talking about wanting to make changes or pulling guys, I don't know who he can pull, especially now when you get these injuries. I mean, he can go in there and yell all he wants about the offensive line, but who can he even put in there?
Give an example. One guy who played a ton of tight end today. When the snap counts come out tomorrow, we'll see. He was out there a lot. I don't know, 40, 50% or more. A guy you folks have probably never heard of, Dominique Jones from Shepherd, who was just signed. He didn't even make the initial roster. The Dolphins are so desperate for someone that they think can catch passes on third down at the tight end position. They had Dom Jones out there.
Yeah.
And poor Billy Turner. I asked Jermon Bushrod after the game, hey, did left tackle come up at all?
Like maybe Bushrod could play left tackle?
Yeah. And he said, well, before the game they said, be ready to go over there if needed. And I'm thinking, well, poor Billy Turner is getting killed out there, giving up 3 sacks. At what point do you move Bushrod over? I know you also spoke to some offensive linemen. What sense did you get from the offensive line group after giving up 6 sacks?
They're demoralized, I think. I think this is a group that felt like they were getting it together toward the end of August, like going into the start of the season. And even in that first game in Seattle, I thought they played okay. And everything's gone wrong for them. Plus, Joe, if you wrote down their 5 starters, the guys that you would come into the season expecting to be their offensive line, those guys haven't played together one game. Mike Pouncey comes back today. Albert and Tunsil are out. They just can't get 5 guys out there on the field at the same time. You mentioned Tannehill. We should talk about this. A lot of boos for Tannehill. Chants for Matt Moore. I didn't see that coming.
They were chanting, "We want more," and I literally thought, as you did, that they just wanted more, as in a better performance.
Well,
and then
joking.
I realized, oh, you were joking?
Well, there's no way anybody wanted more of what they were watching today, man.
No, I thought that.
More with 2 O's.
So they were chanting for Matt Moore.
You gotta get a discerning ear, man.
No, I
can hear the second O.
Quickly realized that what they wanted was Matt Moore. And I understand the frustration.
It's earned frustration.
I understand the frustration, but Adam Gase said after the game, Ryan Tannehill is his quarterback for the season.
Definitively, periodly.
Yeah, and that makes the most
He said,
sense.
you can ask me this 100 times, and the answer is going to be the same.
Yeah, and that should be the case, because we know what Matt Moore is. He's a pretty good backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
He is not the future of the franchise. We need to find out definitively that Ryan Tannehill is not the answer. And through 5 games, 1/3 of the season approximately, hard to imagine, almost 1/3 of the season played. The bottom line is that we still can't definitively say that Tannehill has no future here.
Well, you're right about that, but I do think you know who he is at this point. I mean, he's been around 5 years. I think that there's 5 years worth of tape. He's been the starter every year he's been here. I don't think that Ryan Tannehill is going to get appreciably better unless you start getting some much better players to put around him, some incredible skilled players. And another thing, Joe, that sticks out to me about Adam Gase saying that is Adam Gase has come in there to the facility trying to light a fire under guys, saying everybody here can lose their job over performance, but apparently one guy can't. Apparently, no matter what Ryan Tannehill does, his job's never at risk.
I'm okay with the idea that Tannehill was going to be the starter and is going to be starter outside of injury. And by the way, Laramie Tunsil gets hurt somehow before the game. Ryan Tannehill, what do they say about availability, dependability, the best quality, whatever? He's at least gone out there every game and taken a beating and stayed in the game. I know that's not... That doesn't mean much to Dolphins fans, but it should mean something.
Yeah.
The guy's at least healthy and available.
Ryan Tannehill hasn't earned the right to be bulletproof in my mind. That you could just have his coach say, no matter what happens the rest of the year, he won't be benched.
But Gase is taking a long view. He understands that this football team is going to win 4 to 6 games.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. So you put Matt Moore out there and you win 6 or 7 instead of maybe 4 or 5 with Ryan Tannehill. If you go 4 and 5 with Ryan Tannehill, and he throws 18 interceptions, he's going to be gone. They're going to trade him or cut him or whatever. So,
I don't think that Adam Gase really is that committed to Ryan Tannehill, by the way. I don't buy it. I don't believe him that he would never bench. I think if Ryan Tannehill plays like this again next week, he could be benched against Pittsburgh.
I think Gase understands that even though we can never admit this publicly and it'll hurt the fans to hear this, it just doesn't matter how many games they win this year.
Yeah,
I'm not
well, it certainly
suggesting,
doesn't at this point.
I saw some tweets about tanking the season to try to get one of those quarterbacks that might be available. It's too early to discuss tanking the season.
Probably, but it's not too early to discuss where you think this team is at record-wise, where that you think that is even possible for them to end up. They're 1-4, Joe. They've had at home, they've had Cleveland come in and nearly beat them. They had Tennessee come in and be flat out too much for them. I mean, if those aren't gimmies at home, what's the gimme going to be this year?
Six
this
wins.
Is a bad team.
6 wins is the cap.
6 wins sounds high.
6 wins.
I agree with you. That's the cap. Basically by calling it the cap, you're saying that's the high end. 6 wins. That's your best case scenario for this season.
Some guys aren't going to be here long term. Arian Foster is not going to be here long term. Maybe he could have played today. You know what? I really think Adam Gase, part of his thought process, not only let's give out Arian Foster an extra week to maybe last 3 weeks instead of breaking down after 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think his thought process is, I want to ride the J train. I want to give Jay Ajayi some run. And Ajayi actually did some decent things today. And Damian Williams did some decent things on third down screens. So I think that Gase has some weapons. It's sort of sad that most of the weapons are running back receivers at this point because the receivers aren't getting it. Today was just a catastrophe. It was an absolute disaster. It was a mess. It was embarrassing. It cannot get any worse than being humiliated by the Tennessee Titans at home.
Well, last week was like that a little bit, and the Cleveland game, even though they won, was like that a little bit. I mean, you're starting to see a trend here of what
I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers are salivating with the thought that a banged-up Byron Maxwell, Tony Lippett, and Bobby McCain are basically your top corners. So this week, the Dolphins got smashed on the ground, which we foresaw. I mean, this was not a surprise that the Titans were going to come in and try to play smash-mouth football.
Yeah.
And by the way, they couldn't stop Marcus Mariota on runs either.
No, he was all over the place.
So quarterbacks, here's the way I look at it. The Dolphins have had problems with quarterbacks who are athletic and accurate, running backs who are fast and powerful, average offensive lines. They can't do anything defensively. They've been embarrassed defensively. And then offensively, they can't pass the ball accurate down the field. Maybe running the football at times you saw a glimmer of hope. That's about it.
Maybe. Even that. I mean, their longest run today was 9 yards.
So, there's not much positive.
You're trying, man. You're reaching for positive.
There's not. I mean, name one guy through 5 games. Here's a challenge, an unscripted challenge. Not that we script these things. Name one guy who has exceeded expectations for the Miami Dolphins.
Exceeded?
This year.
I was going to say Matt Darr, but then Matt Darr goes and gets an unnecessary roughness penalty today.
He's frustrated. He was channeling Cameron Wake. Matt Darr, that's a good one.
Maybe Jarvis Landry? No, I'm not serious about Matt Darr. Nobody wants to talk about punting, even though that is correct. Jarvis Landry, maybe? Met expectations, at least? Met expectations grading on a curve with this team.
Although
Met expectations
what did he
is a pretty
finish
good
with?
score. Probably not that much
3
today.
for 28.
3 for 28.
I don't know
but-
the last time Jarvis Landry had 28 yards. I mean,
Yeah.
it surely wasn't his
I mean,
fault.
Tannehill had 12 completions, so there wasn't a lot
I got a
to go around
positive.
today.
Jakeem Grant's
There we go. There we
74-yard
go.
punt return. You can
Yeah.
see it on the
And a
Daily
guy that
Dolphin.
everybody likes. Everyone roots for that
Yeah,
guy.
I mean-
He's little. You can identify with him. And he's a cool personality. What'd you see on that punt return? You were watching that.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that Jakeem Grant made 3 or 4 guys miss in a way that maybe only Jarvis Landry can on this team.
Yeah.
Took the right sideline, cut back, made some guys miss, cut back again. That was about the only moment of excitement inside this stadium. And there was so much energy in the stadium last night watching on TV.
Oh, for the Hurricanes.
Think about the
right.
juxtaposition of what awesome football we saw.
Yeah.
Miami, Florida State, and
just
what
the excitement
awful, atrocious, almost unwatchable football we have seen in this stadium. It must be so disappointing. The Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, who spent so much money and trying to make this place look beautiful, and the product has just not lived up to this beautiful stadium. It's going to take some time, Dolphins. It's not going to happen overnight for Adam Gase. It's not going to happen overnight for the Dolphins organization. It's going to take a lot of time.
A lot more suffering to come, so look forward to that. A mess today,
Yeah.
a mess so far for the season, and then I think you got Pittsburgh, probably the best opponent that they'll have faced yet, because you had New
Is
England
it
without
Pittsburgh
Brady.
and then Jets?
I
some
can't
order.
remember if
Pittsburgh,
it's the Jets
Jets,
or the
and
Bills,
Buffalo in
but
some
they
order.
got Pittsburgh coming in this week, and
So
that's a monster.
all of a sudden you go from the idea that you could go 4-4 at the gate to you could be 1-7.
Yeah.
The whole perspective changes in the last 2 weeks. And you made a good point. They could very well be winless at this point. And if the Dolphins were winless, I don't know when they'd be throwing bottles here, like they were bottles and cans, like they were in the Canes game last night.
And they're only not winless because they beat the team that is Cleveland. Barely.
Someone told me once that it's far more interesting to cover either a team that's really good or really catastrophic.
Oh, I agree. That's definitely true.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's
8-8 is
nothing worse
boring,
than covering
yeah.
a team that is boring. And the Dolphins franchise has been stuck in neutral
Yeah.
for years. It appears that they are not in neutral. They are in reverse at this point in time. But sometimes you need to take a few steps back to go forward. Want you guys to, first of all, we thank you for actually tuning in. We see several hundred people have tuned in for this Facebook Live chat. We appreciate you guys.
Yes.
We're doing this for you guys. And please log on to the Daily Dolphin and Palm Beach Post Sports and the Post on Dolphins on Facebook and all of our Twitter accounts, Schad Joe and Jason Leisure. And we're going to try to convey to you all the frustration, anxiety, and disappointment that the players and coaches feel in tomorrow's newspaper and online. Thanks, guys.